Hello and welcome to Let's Talk Sports. I am Ralph Labella.
And I'm Ron Sen. And once again, a week full of activity, and we'll start off with how did those drugs get into my system? Robinson Cano, former Yankee and now Seattle Mariner, tested positive for furosemide, which is a diuretic used as a masking agent for generally players taking steroids. So he's got an 80-game suspension and is ineligible for the postseason should the Mariners somehow make the postseason.
Yeah, what is it, $12 million he's going to lose out on? You know, you wonder, you would think where he got his big contract, he didn't need the steroids anymore, you know, to make the money.
Right.
But of course he wants the stats and everything. The funniest thing is when he said, I've never used steroids. You know, the guy's put on like about 30 pounds since his rookie year, at least 30 pounds, probably even more. You know, and, you know, they had a situation about 5 years ago with a Dominican agent who was giving his players steroids, you know, and that happened. And then you got people like Gonzalez, you got A-Rod. I mean, you also have Clemens, you also have Bonds, you also have McGuire. They're all taking about.
Presumably David Ortiz probably tested positive. I mean, you know, and when Jose Canseco said that most of the players were taking steroids, and people said, no, that can't be. Well, it probably was. And, you know, Major League Baseball instituted a strict drug testing program. Presumably, they're catching most of the people who are doing it. And especially, like you said, he's already got paid. So what's the incentive?
$25 million a year. He got, what do you have, an 8-year contract?
He had a big contract.
You know, he's made $200 million. And, you know, it's a shame. I mean, you know he's been using it. He's been using it to be that good. And now it comes out that he was using it. But like you said, he never used it. But, I mean, it's crazy. $200 million. He's already got it. But he wants the stats. You know, he wants to remain one of the best players in baseball. That was one good thing. I mean, the Yankees kind of blew it on Ellsbury. But letting Cano go was a good move by them.
Right. Before we talk about the Celtics, we'll just mention that one of the statistics that's come out recently is the value of passing. Like, who didn't know that? But Golden State has really dramatically improved over time, passing the ball over 300 times a game. And if you watched the first game of the Golden State-Houston series, you see a dramatic difference. You have one team passing the ball around and the other team playing one-on-one with Harden or Chris Paul. And, I mean, the TNT guys were really hard. They're saying like, well, I think Golden State's going to win the series in 3. I mean,
you never know, though. Houston could come out tonight and hammer Golden State. I wouldn't be surprised if Houston beat him by, you know, in the teens, 15 points tonight.
Well,
I mean, who would you bet tonight if you say was he a pick 'em?
Yeah, no, I mean, you're at home. The NBA has the highest percentage of home winning of any sport. And Houston's got a lot of guys that can light it up. So the Curry didn't really have a great game at all, though. That's the thing is Durant was unstoppable, which is not that shocking because he's that good a player. And I think Curry's still the best player on Golden State, but Durant's a close second.
Green's playing really well.
Yeah, presumably
Thompson.
they're in a situation where 4 players from that team could go into the Hall of Fame someday, assuming that Green got into a shoving match early. He could have easily gotten disqualified with 2 technicals. He was lucky that he didn't, and you know, as long as that happened, it was very fortunate for Golden State. But I mean, Golden State controlled the game, and it should still be an interesting series. But you know, I've noticed the broadcasters have really not pulled their punches at all, whether it's Van Gundy talking about the Cavaliers, and you know, he had a line about they look at each other with eye rolls like a couple that can't stand each other when they're married. It's just been incredible. Now, another issue that's come up is how much credit should Brad Stevens get? And everybody knows it's a players' league at the end of the day. The Celtics have their best 2 players out for the series. They're getting incredible production from young players. Robert Parrish came out and said, well, maybe it's premature to give Stevens too much credit because he hasn't won anything yet.
You know my feeling. He's a good coach. He's not as good as people think he is, but he's a good coach. And if I had a choice of all the coaches in the NBA, it'd be between him and Snyder. I wouldn't want Popovich. He's pompous, right? He thinks he's the best around. His word is always good. I told you what I feel when he blew that finals to LeBron James when he kept dunking on the bench at the end when Allen hit that three-pointer and Bosh gets that big rebound to kick it over to Allen. If Duncan's in the game, Bosh doesn't get. But Snyder and Stevens, I would take it to them. But you know what gets me don't run. You got the Philly series, right? And they're getting on the Philly coach. They're saying that Stephen A. Smith is blasting them. And number one, Stephen A. Smith, because he's a big Philly fan, he didn't know what he was talking about because the best play that was called in that game was that play to Bellinelli. When Bellinelli stood on the three-point line, they set a nice pick for him, came off the pick, away from the ball. They were setting up a three-pointer. His front of his feet were on the three-point line. Instead of winning the game, they tied it. They're all complimenting Stevens for that lob to Horford.
Well, to me, I think that the more general strategy has been how do you shut down teams in transition? And if you look at Russell Westbrook with Utah and Snyder and what the Celtics did to Ben Simmons, is the key has been to get the big man back into the paint so that you can double team the point guard so they can't penetrate all the way to the rim. And since Simmons doesn't have an outside shot, many of you know that Simmons did not score a three-point field goal this year. I mean, you could just be lucky and make one. He just doesn't take outside shots because he has no confidence. So the key for Philadelphia going forward, yes, they want to get another star, is they need to get Simmons to learn to have something from the outside.
Yeah, I mean, in that series there, I think the worst non-call was Stevens. Let me ask you a question, right? Philadelphia scores with 41 seconds. You got 2 timeouts left. They score in that game.
Which one?
The game I'm talking about when Bellinelli hit that shot, when Horford hit that shot.
Yeah, I was at a wedding that day, so I didn't see that game.
So what happens is 42 seconds to go in a game when Philly scores a basket. All right? Stevens has 2 timeouts. They're down 2 now. Doesn't use one of the timeouts to get the ball in the front court to go 2 for 1. Now, basketball mind, I'm sitting there and I'm saying, call a timeout. Go for 2 for 1. You're down 2. Make sure you get the last possession. Doesn't call a timeout. Again, 2 timeouts. They bring the ball up the court. They shoot with under 24 seconds to go. Miss. Philly gets the rebound. Philly in the front court throws the ball away. That's when Rozier passed the ball to Brown for the layup to tie the game. Mm-hmm. But Stevens wasn't thinking. A great coach, someone would have definitely called that timeout with 2 timeouts to go, get the ball in the front court, run a play, go 2 for 1. He didn't do it. And they're all knocking Brown for Philadelphia, saying Stevens outcoached them in that game because the lob passed to Horford down low for the big basket. But no one's saying anything about Bellinelli stepping on the line. That was a perfect call by Brown. No one's saying anything about Stevens not calling the timeout. Well, so that's what I'm saying about Stevens. I like him as a coach, but I see things during the season.
Well, somebody asked LeBron after the first game, what his opinion was, and he said the narrative always ends up being the team that makes the shots wins, the team that misses the shots loses. And you say, well, yeah, that's kind of an oversimplification, and yet that's also what happens. The team that make the shots, especially in the era of three-point shooting, is the team that wins.
Well, the Celtics in Cleveland, it's very simple to see why did LeBron come, what's your thinking? Why did LeBron come out passive in the first game? More than any time I probably have ever seen, maybe a period here and there, but in that game it was unbelievably.
He doesn't have.
But what's the reason?
He doesn't have a lot of talent around him.
Yeah, so that's part of it. But what's the number one reason? Number one reason is
he's going somewhere else.
He doesn't want to play against Golden State. He doesn't want to lose for the 3rd time in 4 years against Golden State.
It's possible.
So he comes out and has a great first quarter against the Celtics yesterday. Great He played unbelievable.
I mean, he was at the Garden 9.5 hours before the game, working on his game, three-point shooting, post moves. I mean, so you can't say the guy's not motivated. He was there working on his game, and you know, it is what it is. Now, kind of an interesting story is Carson Smith, Red Sox relief pitcher, currently on the disabled list for subluxating his shoulder, which means separating his shoulder. 10-day disabled list is probably not going to put you back into being able to pitch in relief because he threw his glove in anger coming off the field. Well, since your arm is your livelihood, you'd think you might want to take care of yourself. And then today, he said, well, I've been overworked, so my arm is weak. And one of the Mass Live reporters said, so are you saying that it's Alex Cora's fault, the manager, that your arm is weak and that caused your injury? And he said, no comment. So to me, he just made a dumb move, had a freak injury, and blaming the manager is just sad.
Well, WEI interviewed Cora tonight, you know, on the way here. I was listening to it. You know, now he's not going to throw Smith under the bus like Carson Smith threw him under the bus. But he just said, listen, we check with all our pitchers. You know, against the Yankees, he came to us one game and said that he couldn't pitch that day. We didn't go to him, you know. And we have that with all the pitchers. We talk to the pitchers, know who can pitch that game, what relievers, you know, need a rest. He goes, we know all that.
Well, and you think of, it reminded me of other freak injuries in sports. So,
jumping on the plate.
Glenn Allen Hill, with you know, supposedly saw a spider in his room and fell and got injured. I don't know if that happened or if there was something else. Now, Marcus Smart didn't have a freak injury. He punched a picture frame. That's just, you know, that's just dumb. Kendrys Morales was celebrating his home run and injured his leg. Some people may remember Gus Frerotte, who head-butted the wall and hurt his head. You know, so you just say, what did John Madden used to say? Be careful about celebrating because you may not be able to handle it. So it was just another one. Greg Louganis hit it when he hit his head on the diving board during the Olympics.
That's right, I remember that.
You know, and I mean, obviously he wasn't doing anything out of his normal activity. It's just freak injuries happen. But I think that if you throw your glove, you know, it's pretty hard to blame somebody else for your injury.
Look at Welker and Edelman. Didn't get hit on either play, and they both tore it in the
end.
Yeah,
I was reading an outstanding interview / speech by Patriots assistant Mike Lombardi, and he was talking about Malcolm Butler back playing against Seattle in the Super Bowl several years ago. And he was saying the Patriots had played that or practiced that defense for several years, for months, every single Friday, and they had never played it one time. So he said, first of all, there was no way that another team could have been prepared for the defense because they simply had never used it. And second, he said, with the defense, you have 3 cornerbacks and 8 linemen, linebackers. So where the 3 wide receivers set, you have 6 linemen on offense, the quarterback and the running back. So a running play is 6 against 8. He said, if they ran the ball, he said, we're going to stop that play. We know that, and they know that, which is why they passed the ball. So he said, when you think about, oh, it should have been this way, or Seattle definitely would have won if he ran the ball, he basically said, no, we would have stopped him. There was no question in our mind we're going to stop him.
Well, how many times did they get stopped? Did Lynch get stopped on 3rd and
for the
shot
year.
and 4th and shot?
All the time.
It was like 6 for 6. He got stopped when he had less than a yard to go.
Right. And
but the time was big then. The time in the game.
Again, Lombardi was saying that during the incident, people are screaming at Belichick in the headset to take a timeout. And he said Belichick is looking across the field at Carroll, and he said, guess he said that he looked confused and they weren't sure what they wanted to do. So that's when he called goal line 3, which is the defense the Patriots used, and the rest is history.
Well, they practiced that all week.
Oh, yeah. And the other point that I thought was really interesting, he talked about the draft and the Patriots' approach to the draft. And he said, it's far more about elimination than selection. So he said, first of all, the owner says certain types of players are not acceptable to the team. He said domestic violence, guns, and hard drugs. He said, we're just not taking any of those players. Second, he said, as far as marijuana goes, he said if we eliminated players who'd ever taken marijuana, he said there wouldn't be a player in the National Football League. So he said, we don't look at that.
Who said that?
Lombardi.
They're full of crap, those people.
Well, and then the third thing he said, we look at how players we think will fit in our system, and if they have characteristics that make it likely that they won't fit for whatever reason, we eliminate them.
You're talking about the Patriots?
The Patriots, yeah. So he's there. So the number of people, he said, that are potentially draftable by the Patriots is a lot smaller than people think. So they don't just say, okay, we're going to start looking for these guys. He said, the first thing we do is discard a large pile of players.
Why did they discard Hernandez?
Well, that's a good question.
And why did they pick up all these problem players? Because they knew they were going to help the team. I've told you a number of times, the owners are no good. The owners in pro sports have proven that they're no good.
Well,
I don't care, you can say all you want about Kraft, what he's done, here and here. They knew the steroids were out there. They knew they were taking it. They knew the concussion situation. They were letting it go until the pressure got on them. You see it in baseball, the owners in baseball, the owners in football, they're all the same. They're not good people, Ron.
Well, I would say that if you look at any industry, there are people who are ethically and morally challenged.
Look at it, Belichick. Everybody loves Belichick, right? Look what he did with Johnson. When he knew he had a concussion and sent him out there, he was in a daze. Johnson even said it. He said, I didn't know where he was. He said, I know Belichick knew I didn't know where he was. He sent him right back out in the field and he gets knocked out again.
Well,
I mean, they care about the money and they care about winning.
Well, the Carolina Panthers got sold to hedge fund manager David Tepper. I think it was Jerry Richardson who owns the Panthers, and supposedly he had issues regarding sexual harassment, which the NFL probably forced him to sell the team. And this week it came up about a remote indictment about Matt Patricia. Now, I don't know any details, and I don't know how much has come out about that, but you certainly wonder whether Patricia wearing the Goodell clown nose shirt had anything to do with that getting released at this time. I don't know.
And that happened when? When he was in school?
21 years ago.
I mean, you got to forget about it. I mean, plus there was no charge. They got dropped.
Yeah, so hard to know, but it's all timing-wise suspicious. Michigan State paid off $500 million to 300 athletes from the U.S. Olympic team and other sports for sexual abuse by their team physician, Larry Nassar. You just wonder how something could have gone on so long. There's no question that it did. There's no question he's a bad guy. There's no question he's going to spend the rest of his life in bars, behind bars. You just wonder, how did it ever get to the point that people turn their head?
You know, they must have known about it if they paid $500 million.
Well, yeah, right.
Because if they didn't know about it, they'd be crazy to pay any money. You know, it's more the Olympic Committee, and to me, a lot of it's on the parents. I mean, you've got to be kidding me. You have to be kidding me. You have teenagers, and that's happening to them, and they're not telling the parents that this is happening. 100-something teenagers. I mean, that's ridiculous, Ron. And they're not checking on it.
Right. It's just a real head scratcher how this could have gone on. Now, presumably, it will never. Well, it's easy to say it will never happen again, but you know, human nature is that people do bad things.
But nowadays, no one trusts anybody, Ron. No one trusts them. I mean, how do you let your daughter go someplace where that's
why
you're
I think
not checking on it.
That's why I think transparency is so important. And it doesn't matter if you're a guy coaching guys or a woman coaching girls, you still need the transparency because you want to make sure that people are being treated ethically.
But your daughter's going there, right? Right. And you're not asking her how everything is. You know, is everything okay? You know, and they're gonna. I can't believe they're not telling their parents.
Well,
I mean, I'm not sticking up. I
no,
mean,
you're
the
not.
doctor was.
Right. He's
Forget
just
the doctor.
He's a terrible guy. But right, you wonder how could nobody have a clue that anything bad was going on? I mean, we agree that this is some semblance of justice, but it's just really hard to fathom. We'll be right back. Welcome back. And we're going to do a little bit of a post-mortem on the Bruins. The Bruins got a tremendous regular season, came up a little bit short as far as being the #1 seed, and that ended up really costing them because they expended a lot of energy against Toronto and then ran into Tampa Bay with injuries on their own side. Krug out with a broken ankle. DeBrusk supposedly had some sort of injury. But you just wonder I wondered whether the Bruins got a little conservative in the postseason and tried to go back to almost their old style with playing more defense instead of aggressive offense. And whether it's backup defensemen or whatever, they struggle in their own end.
The one thing is Rask is no Thomas, that's for sure. I mean, you look at the difference when they won the Stanley Cup with Thomas, and then you look at Rask. He's terrible at cutting the angle down, you know. And I went back to when, because I watched all those games when Thomas, you know, the way he would move and all that, take the angles away. And I saw a lot of goals that Rask gave up. And I was like, geez, Thomas would have never given up that goal.
Well, I think that Thomas won the series for them, and Rask is not a bad goalie, but he's not good enough to win the series for you.
But I still say what I said years ago, they should have given up Rask instead of Boychuk. Rask had more. I think they were paying him $7 million a year. They should have let him go. They should have got a young goalie in there, work with a young goalie, and instead, and they could have got another player with the money situation. They kept Rask, and I don't think they can win it with Rask.
They had 12 playoff games, and I was checking the stats that Pasternak had 20 points, Marchand 17, Bergeron 16, and Krug had 12, although Krug was -5 and plus-minus. And on the minus side, the two players who had the biggest minus and plus-minus were Rick Nash, who they traded a ton away for him, and Backes, who, I don't know, I just don't see the fascination with Backes. And both of the Nashes weren't great. And then, for whatever reason, they chose to bury Donato because he didn't have playoff experience.
They say it's not tough enough. The guy they should let go is Krejci. Let him he's the highest paid player on the team, Krejci. I mean, a guy like, you're paying him that much money.
Yeah, it's like $7 million.
What is he doing? 7 point something million. And another guy too, Bergeron was getting tired at the end. You know, a couple of those players weren't the same players they were at the end of the year, and that's what happened. But Bergeron, he lost the edge. Marchand was losing the edge at the end. I mean, they weren't playing like they were.
Well, there was that one play, they were on the power play, and Marchand couldn't keep it in the zone, and then he tried to recover on defense, and he looked really awkward. It was the slowest breakaway goal in the history of sports. And
you know what happens though, Ron, when you peaked early in the year, I mean, they peaked and they stayed there for a while. It's kind of tough playing at that level. But then when you get up and a team like Tampa, who's quicker than you, even though you have some good young skaters, that caused big time problems. And again, Krug going down for the last game, you know, they do need another top defenseman somehow.
Well, we'll get back to the NBA because we actually know something about that, we think. Houston has the third best record really over the last 15 years or so, and they have a very analytically driven approach with Daryl Morey, their general manager. They feel there's 3 criteria that separate the players that are going to be successful in the NBA: what college they go to, how they perform at that college, and age at the time that they're drafted. The younger, the better. So if you look at a player like Jason Tatum, went to Duke, outstanding performance at Duke, really young kid. So he fits the model for a player who's going to be successful. Now, if one and done is over, that takes away 2 out of the 3 of your characteristics.
Yeah.
So, and we don't know how. I mean,
they think it's going to be a couple of years anyway.
Yeah, I mean, to me, you draft a kid out of high school, there's no high school players since LeBron that are ready to go into the NBA because they're not physical enough and they don't have enough understanding about how to play in the NBA as far as the pick and roll and defense, which is, it takes a long time to learn that, which is astounding that guys like Tatum have picked it up so quickly.
You know, they were showing a little film of a Celtic practice early in the year, and Horford teaching Tatum how to rotate him defense. And it's kind of funny. He played at Duke, you know, star in high school, played at AAU. But, you know, a lot of AAU coaches, they don't teach you anything. They just get the best players and go out there, pressure the ball or whatever. But, and it was really interesting how Horford said, listen, in this situation, when you're a help defender, you should be able to take 2 passing lanes away. So, you know, if you're here, you should be able to cover here, and you should be able to take this away. And he's explaining it to Tatum. It's kind of interesting. They're going to show that. The NBA TV is going to show that.
It's interesting. A lot of times, and this hurt Melrose in the postseason on the girls' side, away from the ball, there's different strategies that people will use. You can either try to fight over the screen, which is very tough from the help side, or what is another alternative is you have the screener's defender jam the screener and go underneath. But what the Celtics do, and I watched for this at practice, is they have the defender of the screener back off and almost play zone, and then have the cutter's defender shoot the gap between the backed off defender and the screener. And that works a lot better as far as taking away layups. Okay, you're going to give up some mid-range shots and an occasional 3, but the Celtics are very consistent in what they do if you watch in the future. And you know, it's not like it's an accident. They drill this over and over at practice, and the players know exactly what they're going to do. Now, if you don't, and another thing that they do is if they switch on the pick and roll, then they will usually switch a second time with a big onto that initial switch. So you get some, you know, a player like Brown who's 6'7", or Tatum 6'8", they can handle most bigs, at least enough to keep them, you know, have to make them work.
They don't do a good job on the pick and roll and the pick and pop, the Celtics. I don't think they do. They switch on every pick. If it's not a pick and roll, if they're just setting the pick for the guy to come off the pick, they switch on every one, which I don't like. And I mean, Rozier could be covering James because, and the thing is, they never fight through a pick.
Well, the reason they do this is because it's all analytically driven. If you look at, for example, post-ups. Post-ups are the lowest scoring play on points per possession in the NBA. NBA.com breaks down by player and by team. The second lowest is isolation, and there's only one team that has a 1 point per possession or higher, which is not surprising to hear. It's Houston, because Harden does it all the time. And he either gets fouled or he can get to the rim. What Golden State was exceptional at the other day is if you watch their defenders, they keep their arms back. So Harden and Paul, if you have your arms out, they come up, try to hit you in the arm, draw a foul.
Harden.
Yeah, especially Harden. That's his signature move. So Golden State took that away, which is really bright. And if I've seen video of the Celtics at practice that Stevens is big on telling the players, show your hands, keep them back, so that people can't do that to you. And it's little things, but when games are often decided by 4 to 6 points, those little things make a big difference.
And they changed that rule too, where you had your hand out and the player would just come up, looking for that foul. It's no longer a 2-shot foul. But you know, getting back to the Celtics, the one thing I don't like about their defense, even though they're one of the top defensive teams in the league, I think a reason why they're one of the top defensive teams, I mean, they're long, number one. You got Tatum now, and you got, we talked about it last year that they have to improve on almost every position. They've improved it to 2 with, now you have Brown instead of Bradley, 6'7" guy who's long, you know, quick. Even though Bradley was quick, Brown covers more room. And then at the 3, you got, instead of Crowder, you got Tatum, who is better than Crowder in just about everything, except maybe rebounding. So they've improved in those positions. But, you know, the one thing, one of the reasons why they're one of the top defensive teams is they're the number 1 team in the league on 4 shots at the end of the shot clock. 9.7 a game. compared to the next closest is 8.2.
Well, I think part of that is because they switch everything so that they don't give away very many open threes. So that,
Oh, they're really good at that.
Yeah.
But they're long also.
oh yeah, no.
But I mean, you teach in high school. I know this is pro, so of course it's, you know, more advanced. You teach in high school, you try to beat the pick. You know, try to come over to try to beat the pick. If you like we had a girl, Shannon, was great at coming up on the pick. But Celtics, I mean, they give up on the pick even before they know if they can get through it or not.
Well, I think it depends on the player, because when I went to the walkthrough and they were going to play Toronto, they were having Rozier try to go over the top and to stop specifically a play for Kyle Lowry. Now, Toronto's got a whole separate set of issues here. They fired Dwayne Casey, who was the NBA Coach of the Year, their votes. But the problem was DeRozan really totally spit the bit against Cleveland.
Well, what do you think's the reason why did he get fired?
Yeah.
Lowry and DeRozan don't like him because they didn't get as many minutes. He's going with a bigger bench, you know, and they weren't happy about that. You sit down DeRozan in the last 14 minutes of the last game because he's not having a good game. He's your star player. He got you there.
Well, that's one of the key points that if you look at a coach like Steve Kerr, who's got fabulous players at Golden State, it's totally about the players. He doesn't try to take any credit at all. He basically says that, hey, I got some great players, they do a great job, and that's why we've been so successful. And when Stevens has gotten credit, he's deflected and said, look, the last thing that we're successful is because of the coaching. The players are out there. In college, the coaches are always out trying to take as much credit as possible. But in the pros, it's about the players. And because the players are going to be the ones making the big money, and the superior pro coaches give the credit to the players.
Well, Stevens is smart, too. He's smart because he's getting enough credit. He doesn't have to open up his mouth.
Yeah.
And he has to reflect it because, you know, he's got all these players playing great basketball. You know, a compliment to him. I mean, they're all, but I mean, I've seen a ton of teams like his team that are playing to the max, like they are now.
Right. Well, why have the Celtics been successful so far? They close out on three-point shooters. They get back in transition. The transition defense has been really good. They're hardly giving up anything in transition. Even Antetokounmpo, they sort of held them down as much as you can. And the third thing is they are relentless on mismatches. When Horford goes on Love, Love has no chance against Horford. When Tatum or Brown is up against somebody like Kyle Korver, they're just going to immediately back him down. And
Korver, they can't get a shot off.
Yeah, I mean, Korver's helpless when Brown or Tatum take him low. Even Marcus Smart against Korver, he's too physical for him. Now, speaking of Marcus Smart, I know Ralph said mixed feelings about Smart. I call Smart his foxholiness, because if you're in the foxhole, you want Smart there because he is the toughest, craziest son of a gun in the world.
I'm going to guarantee you one thing. Smart will not be with the team next year.
No, he may not be.
I guarantee
because
that.
You need insurance for Kyrie Irving if his knee is not sound, and the insurance is Rozier, who's been terrific in the playoffs.
And it would be Smart, too. If Kyrie was only going to play 60 games a year, but here's the reason Smart won't be with them. Minutes. He'll be taking up minutes from Brown next year. He'll be taking up minutes from Tatum next year. He'll be taking up minutes from Kyrie next year in Hayward. So those 30 minutes that he gets, 28 to 30 minutes, everybody's saying, well, what are they going to do next year? Well, those 30 minutes that he's getting in the playoffs, they're going to go to Hayward next year. Who would you rather have out there, Smart or Hayward?
I know.
Number one. And then Kyrie. Rozier's going to be the 2. He's going to be the backup for Brown and Kyrie. So you're not going to have Smart in there taking up minutes from Brown or Kyrie at guard.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how much money Smart gets. I think
he'll get $20 million from another team.
Well, Evan Turner got 17.5 from Portland.
A lot of coaches love Smart.
No, but to me, if you're a bad team, adding Smart isn't going to do much for you, because he's a difference maker in close games, which bad teams aren't. They're not losing close games.
You may see Philly pick him up. They may let Redick go, and they may pick him up.
Yeah, Redick's
$22 million.
$20 million. So, you know, it'll be really interesting to see what happens with him.
But if you notice when Smart's out in the court, I mean, I love him and you hate him. You know, as a fan, but, you know, he does things other players don't do. But the one thing he does, especially when he's out in the court, Rozier, forget Brown and Tatum, okay? Because they're not maximizing either one of them when Smart's out in the court. You know, because if you watch the game even yesterday when Smart played one of his best games as a Celtic, you know, Tatum was just lost out there. He knew he wasn't going to get the ball.
Well, I think Smart is a really good pick-and-roll player. Tatum's not a great pick-and-roll player right now. Horford's a strong pick-and-roll player. It'll be interesting to see also what happens with Baines, because I think he's going to be a free agent. And
I think they'll sign Baines.
I hope so. He's useful. Now, yesterday, Tristan Thompson started for Cleveland, and clearly that was not going to work with Tatum out there. They were better off to bring in Baines in that situation.
Yeah, we talked about that yesterday afternoon. I was talking to the judge and one of the guys I know, and we were going for a walk at lunchtime. We were talking about the game, and I says, because of Thompson, and he's the guy that worries me, you're going to need Baines in there, because if the one thing about James, a lot of people understand it, but James, you need a big covering him. You know, someone like Brown's going to get in foul trouble. Tatum can't handle him. And we came out and said, I said, if they're going to go with that lineup, they're going to have Brown cover Tatum. They're going to have Morris covering Thompson. And then I think a good move by Stevens, even though I love Tatum, after 3 minutes of the third quarter, he took Tatum out. Yeah. And he put Baines in to control Thompson.
Right. And I think that, you know, a guy like Tatum's got to know that his body's going to change a lot in the next couple of years.
Right. But Tatum understood this, because you know Stevens explained it to them.
Oh,
that, listen,
absolutely.
We're going to start you, but we're going to go with Baines, because don't forget, Tatum scored 9 points in a row in the second quarter, then got his third foul and came out. In the second half, he hit his first shot. So he's feeling really good about himself. Next thing you know, he's covering Love. Love goes to the basket. Tatum knocks the ball out of bounds. Right after that, in comes Baines. But I didn't get upset. Tatum's my favorite player, and to me, he's the best offensive player with Brown. But Tatum, when he has the ball, because Tatum's a better passer than Brown is. But when he put Baines in, I said, I know what he's doing. He's got to do it.
Well, what's interesting, Brown's been playing for 2 years, so he's like a junior coming out of college. Now, he's not an all-star player yet, but he's on the cusp where in 2 years you could see him being an all-star player. Now, there's only one ball. Next year, you know, Hayward's going to get shots. Brown's, I mean, there's only...
But here's the key to everybody's saying, what about when those two guys? It's very simple. You know what I feel about Kyrie? I'd rather have another point guard with this group. I'd rather have a real true point guard. You got to tell Kyrie, no more 23 shots a game. You know, we want you down to 15 shots, and we want you to get 10 assists a game. That's what we're looking for. If you can do that, we're going to beat Golden State in the finals, or we're going to battle with them next year. If you can do that. If Kyrie thinks that he's going to be the only guy that takes the big shot at the end of the game, it's going to hurt the team, because he has too many good players with him.
Well, I've never really understood the evolution to that. It has to be the Russell Westbrook shoot first point guard.
I've never liked Russell Westbrook.
You know, so I mean, if I could have a point guard, and I'm not going to name names, there are players who are pass first point guards, and that's what I want to see. People getting involved, get
Nash,
people open shots.
Someone like Nash.
Yeah, Nash, Stockton. You know, Kuzi.
How about this? How about this? And I said it and they laughed, but how about Kyrie playing like Rondo? Play like Rondo, but you're a way better shooter. You can finish at the hoop. Play like Rondo. Get everybody involved. Have a motion offense with those players. They will battle Golden State for the championship next year.
And you say, look, you're going to get paid. We just want you to play the way we want you to play, but we're still going to pay you. So that's really the key. We'll be right back. Teddy Roosevelt has a wonderful quote, "Comparison is the thief of joy." And when you compare players over eras, that's exactly what you get. And one of the discussions that's been bandied about, especially lately, is LeBron versus Jordan. Jordan had 6 championships. LeBron's had 3. Both of them at times have had superior talent around them. Certainly in Miami, LeBron had Wade and Bosch, two superior players. But the first time LeBron went to the finals in the 2007-2008 series, he had a bunch of guys named Joe with him. He had nobody, and they lost to the Spurs in the finals. But the next best player besides LeBron on that Cavaliers team was Larry Hughes, who was a decent player, but not an all-star player, at least at that point. So Jordan has been surrounded with a lot of great players. Pippen, Kukoc, Horace Grant was a really good player. People kind of devalue him because he was, Dennis Rodman. So it wasn't like Jordan was playing with a bunch of stiffs. So I think that when you consider Jordan's greatness, and he is certainly a great player, I think it's also important to think about the talent that surrounded him.
Yeah, I mean, Jordan, to me, by far, is better than LeBron. I mean, LeBron is the second. I mean, when you're talking about who I've seen, Russell's number 1, Chamberlain's 2, Jordan's 3, and LeBron's 4.
Yeah,
LeBron's better than Bird and Magic.
It's hard to compare the wing type player, Jordan and LeBron, to Chamberlain and Russell. They just,
yeah. I mean, Russell's number 1.
Well, that's how
these
we are,
younger
but
people haven't seen him.
Well, most younger people just...
They never saw him play.
They have Russell ranked like 5 or 6 because they have Abdul-Jabbar ahead of Russell, too. You know, and I can't remember, the first year Russell was playing, supposedly he was at the foul line or closer to the basket, and a guy got an outlet pass to half court. So Russell's inside his own foul line. The other guy is at half court. There's no video of this. Russell, in the final minute of the key game, goes down and blocks him at the rim because that's how fast he was. Now Russell in bare feet was 6'10". He wasn't 6'9". He was played somewhere around 235 to 240. He was not a midget. And contrary to popular belief, the Michael Felgers of the world who are saying he didn't play against a bunch of 6'6" centers. He played against Chamberlain. He played against Willis Reed.
Bellamy.
Walt
Thurman
Bellamy. Zelmo Beatty. Nate Thurman. There's a number of incredible talents that he played against. And, you know, for those of you who are not so young, you just didn't have the chance to see the physicality of the game back at that time.
Well, he got up and down the court quicker than anybody I know. He was so quick. But you know the one thing? He averaged one season, did he average 28 rebounds a game?
For his career, he averaged over 23 rebounds a game.
I think he got one year when he averaged 28 rebounds a game, but 6 blocks.
Yeah.
And when he blocked a shot, he wasn't one like these guys that whack the ball out of bounds and they want to show off.
He'd tip it to a teammate.
Or to himself. He'd block the shot and he'd control he'd control the block. I mean, to me, he was the number 1 winner in all the sports. But to me, he's the best basketball player I've ever seen. And I saw him play an awful lot. And again, Chamberlain was number 2. And then I'd go Jordan, LeBron, and then Jabbar.
Well, right. You forget how superior athletes these guys were. Russell was an elite high jumper, one of the top 10 high jumpers in the United States. Chamberlain was, some people say, was the best volleyball player in the United States as well. And they were both, Chamberlain was apparently a great sprinter as well, which is kind of hard to fathom. So it's hard to compare guys across eras. Training is different, the equipment is different, the conditions are different. They widened the lane. The NBA lane used to be 6 feet, and because of Chamberlain and Russell, they widened the lane to make it less of an advantage for them. But it'll be interesting to see what LeBron does. I don't see him staying in Cleveland. He could go to the Lakers along with Paul George. I guess Paul George kind of interests me, and I think if his middle name were John and Ringo, then it could be Paul, John, Ringo, and George all in one name.
But the thing with him, though, is I don't think he's going to go to the West.
Who, George?
No, I don't think LeBron will.
Well, the question is, some people are saying Houston. I don't know how much money they can have to pay him. San Antonio would be interesting. And
not Houston, because then they wouldn't get along, the 3 of them.
Right, there's only one ball, and that's tough to imagine.
And San Antonio is going to be getting rid of Leonard, I believe. they're not happy with him.
Well,
What about Minnesota? But that's out in the West too.
Yeah. So now, Philadelphia.
Then you got Simmons, who likes to handle the ball. Now, where's LeBron?
Right. There's only.
He may go to Philly. He may go to Philly because that's a team, you know, with him on that team, they'd be the favorites over the Celtics. It'd be close because
Right.
he's going to be 34 next year.
Well,
But,
you'd think at some time the guys run out of gas. I mean.
But I would say Jordan, though, right? Yeah, I mean, Jordan's better than LeBron. He's a better winner.
I think it's
6 years in a row he won. LeBron's won 3, right?
Yeah, I think that
In 15 years.
Jordan gets it on winning, but I wouldn't dismiss LeBron depending on what the rest of his career is. I mean, he's going to hold a lot more records. He's got the playoff scoring record. I think they said last night he's got the playoff. He's third in all-time assists in the playoffs. I know they play a lot of games now, but it makes it really interesting. Now we should skip to baseball. It's hard to watch baseball after you watch basketball.
The Celtics especially now.
I know, it's so slow. I mean, you can turn back in 3 innings and nothing's really happened. The Yankees are playing really great now. They're starting to hit, and you know, the Red Sox, the bullpen is a real sore spot for the Red Sox now. Losing Smith, you know, you have Kelly, who's you know, a suspect in the 8th inning. You have Hembry, who's really not great. Matt Barnes, who especially is terrible on the road. He can't seem to throw strikes away from Fenway Park. So the only really reliable reliever they have is Kimbrel. I wonder if they're going to bring up Jalen Beeks, who's down at Pawtucket. And actually Velasquez has been pretty decent in long relief.
Yeah.
You know, but overall, I think they got a bunch of guys you can't trust.
Yeah, well, as a Yankee fan, I'm upset at kid they got from Oakland, Sonny Gray.
Yeah.
He had 2 pretty good outings, but he hasn't pitched well for them, and that's going to hurt him as the season goes on. If he doesn't get more steady, the Yankees are going to be hurting. In
The Red Sox seem to have some unhappiness. You have 2 catchers who are hitting nothing. Bradley, who's hitting nothing. Swihart's agent says he wants to be traded. What are you going to get from him? A bucket of balls right now?
Why did they trade Bradley for a good relief pitcher? They probably could have got a half-decent relief pitcher.
Well, at this point,
what are they going to do with Bradley?
I don't know.
You know, you got Martinez who wants to play all the time now.
Well, and they won't bring up Castillo, who could probably hit
Yeah,
better.
he's in 300.
He can hit better, but then they have to go over the salary cap because his $10 million a year that he's getting in Pawtucket doesn't count.
That's not fair, though.
No, it isn't fair.
It's not fair to him. I mean, come on, he should ask. Maybe he's happy there. No pressure on making my $10 million.
Maybe he is. You know, it's probably not a bad deal to be playing AAA
'cause
baseball for $10 million a year.
You would think he'd be squawking, right? His agent?
Well, the
Or
agent.
trade him?
I haven't heard anything about moving Castillo, and he's been productive in the minors.
But their biggest mistake, and I said it before the season, that Bradley they should have traded for a relief pitcher. They don't need him because Betts and Benintendi can both play center field. Martinez wants to play the outfield.
Well, Benintendi runs the bases like a little leaguer.
You know where he learned that? From Farrell last year. They were a great base running team. They led the league in getting runners thrown out on the bases.
Yeah,
but they love putting pressure on the defense. Well, this is pro baseball.
Well, when you have so many guys striking out as a percentage of outs, I don't think you can afford to run into outs because you don't see enough production. Benintendi has 3 homers right now. He's coming around. He's hitting in the 260s, but it hasn't been anything special. He's playing center field the other night, and instead of running to the wall and catching the ball, he kind of drifted over and missed the ball. It was pathetic.
How about Betts, though? You know, it's funny. Last year, at the end of the year, one of the attorneys, he's 90 years old, and he's still real sharp. He's really good. We talk baseball. Big baseball fan. 90 years old, he goes into the Red Sox games. He goes to about 20 games a year. And I told him at the end of the year, I said, he loves Judge. He said Judge is going to be better this year than he was last year. I said, you know what? I'm a Yankee fan. I would trade Judge for Betts right now at the end of the year last year. I said, I just love Betts' game. He's a superstar. The Red Sox will never let him go.
Well, it's going to cost him a fortune, and Betts is not going to sign early. I don't blame him.
I would take him over Harper. There's not a player in baseball that I would take over him right now. You can't name one player.
Last year, his production went down because he was hurt. I mean, he didn't say he was hurt, but he was hurt. And he can just do everything. He's a phenomenal outfielder. He can throw. He's a terrific runner. He's tied for the league lead in home runs. And he keeps his mouth shut.
But he's the one player I would take over Judge. I wouldn't trade Judge for anyone else either, but I would trade Judge for Betts.
The only thing you worry about a little, he's kind of small, so is he going to end up getting hurt?
But he's tremendous, Ron. He's
no,
one
I
of those
mean,
players.
he's terrific. He's good.
I mean, can do it all.
He's sort of too small to hit the ball as far as he does.
You talk about $40 million. He's going to get close to $40 million. When's his contract up?
He's got, I think he's got 2 more years. I think after the 2020 season, then he's a free agent.
Here's what's going to happen with him. He's going to get a 10-year contract for $400 million.
Yeah, I mean,
he will.
Well, and
I mean, A-Rod got a 10-year contract for $32 million.
we cry for the owners. You know, the owners have plenty of money. They're making money hand over fist, so I don't feel bad for them at all. The other player who is a lot better player than I thought he was is Martinez. I've never seen anybody with as much opposite field power. Now, Judge has a lot of opposite field power.
And Stanton.
Yeah, Stanton.
But the thing with Martinez,
he's a terrible outfielder.
That's another thing I said. The Red Sox are going to make out over the Yankees. The contract's only for, what is it, 5 years, but 2 years
He's
he has an out.
Yeah.
He has an out. He's a 300-something hitter with power. You know, I know he hasn't been as steady as Stanton over the years. He's just gotten, you wonder what he's into too. You don't know.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's been really good the last few years, and they got him and they almost blew it. It's almost like the Patriots with Edelman. Belichick came close to losing him.
Well, the other player who's been probably better than expected so far is Hanley Ramirez. He's more than adequate at first base. He kind of looks awkward, but he makes plays.
He wants those 400-something at bats.
Oh yeah, and he's been productive. He's hitting the clutch, which is, you don't expect that from him. And we'll see where it goes on Pedroia. I don't expect a lot from Pedroia. I expect he's going to be hurt.
Well, you know something else, getting back to Carson Smith? They were talking about it today on the radio. 179 pitchers in baseball have pitched more innings than him
I
this
heard
year.
that. So if he feels like he's been used too much, there's 179 guys who have a better argument than that. As far as coaching goes, I think when you start off coaching, especially in a new job, and we tend to talk about basketball. To me, it's about what's your philosophy. Do you have a clear philosophy that you can impart to your players? What kind of culture are you going to develop? Now, it's different in the pros because, you take a culture like Oklahoma City, Carmelo Anthony says, well, I'm not coming off the bench. All right, so you've already blown yourself up. You just can't do anything about that. And then identity. Who are you? Like the Celtics right now, you can say they have a very clear identity. They play really hard. They play for each other. Now, at least for this year. You don't know what's going to happen next year if everybody's healthy. But so culture, philosophy, and identity. And you can have a lot of different philosophies and be successful. What gets me about, for example, is philosophy is Krzyzewski and Duke was, we have a great educational institution here. We're about teaching kids how to play basketball, making plays, not running plays. And those guys at Kentucky, a bunch of one-and-dones and slamming Calipari. Now, Krzyzewski has become Calipari.
He's not a good guy either. Now he's saying that he'd be okay with a player coming out of high school going right to the pros. You know why? Because he wants to get the players on his side now and their parents on his side so they'll go to his school. He changed his whole thinking. They're all the same, Ron.
I agree with you.
They're all the same. And then
it is.
You got a guy like Stevens, right? He'll get on Brown, he'll get on Tatum. And I know for a fact, I've seen every one of their games, I know that Brown and Tatum have been upset with Stevens a number of times this year. I know it, just what's happening in games. But never gets on Morris, never gets on Hofford, very rarely gets on Smart.
Well, I think
he knows who to get on, and he won't get on the guys that'll go back at him.
Right, and there's veterans are not treated the same as young players. Now, obviously, Tatum's carried the load in the postseason, been really good, and he's finished around the rim a lot better in the postseason than he did in the regular season. Brown, I'm not sure who his comp is going to be going forward. If somebody said to me, will you trade Kawhi even up for Brown, I'd kind of say no right now, because I think Kawhi, something's wrong with his head as far as his willingness to play.
You know, no, I wouldn't trade him for Kawhi now. Not,
he's got issues.
What he did this year. But the situation with the Celtics, it's going to be, you've got to think, I mean, Brown and Tatum love the situation they're in. They could be going to the finals in their first year, you know, but they also want to be the best that they can be.
Right.
So are they going to be happy playing with Kyrie and Kyrie controlling the ball? Hayward's very good at distributing the ball. I mean, he will take less shots if he knows it's best for the team. Horford's the same way. But, you know, I mean, I see it when Smart's in the game. I can see the difference in Tatum when Smart goes in the game. I guarantee you that Brown and Tatum do not like playing with Smart.
Well, it'll be interesting to see. The other day, Grousbeck was being interviewed, and he said, we're willing to go over the luxury tax threshold, but it's about performance. If we're winning championships, we're willing to pay for that. So I think the Celtics have a bright future if, in fact, they're willing to pay for it.
And they get that Sacramento pick next year, too.
Right. I've enjoyed being with you tonight. I'm Ron Sen.
And I'm Ralph Labella, and thank you for watching Let's Talk Sports.